We are live. Great. I'm all set up to follow along. If you have any questions, just drop them into the comments down below. Today, we're talking about all about belly fat, the belly fat that won't budge. Maybe it was, hey, I've always had that there. Or maybe it's like new or more so since you hit perimenopause or menopause, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you're here live, say hi in the comments. And if you're here on the replay, just type replay. I always like knowing who the imperfect action takers are inside this community. Not because I need it, but because it's your way of saying, like, hey, I'm watching, I'm doing something with this. So today we're talking about belly fat and perimenopause and menopause, like I said. And if you're thinking, I'm eating pretty good, I'm moving more, I'm trying, and my belly fat still won't budge, well, you're in the right place with this training because the answer is not just eat less and work out more. I just want to start off by saying, like, you're not imagining it. And let me say this really clearly. It could be the belly, women will describe it as like a muffin top, right? Or just feeling really uncomfortable around that area when they're wearing like their pants or their clothing. There could be bloat, it could be puffiness, it could be feeling tighter in your clothes, or even just like your belts have gone up a notch or what have you, or you feel like at the end of the day you just want to unbutton your pants or just put on your sweats and that sort of thing. And a body just kind of feels maybe different. It maybe from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, or maybe it's week to week or month to month. So I want to say, like, this is real. You're not imagining it, and no, it's not all your fault. In this stage of life, hormones are changing, right? And then it can crank up levels of inflammation in your body, and when inflammation is high, a lot of things start to feel a lot harder. So you might notice things like I said, bloating and stomach issues. So for some women, stomach issues are, yes, more bloating, but just more uncomfortable. Or for some women, it's more of this like full feeling, or like not feeling like they're emptying. It could be more achy joints that may come up with just like, hey, you're working out more. The achiness in your joints are more so than they ever were before. That can be an inflammation sign as well. Slower recovery from your workouts as well. It's just like the discomfort or the pain in your body lingers around more longer. Blood sugar problems, which sometimes can be like, sure, it could come up as like you go and get your blood work and you're seeing like the blood sugar levels going up, but sometimes it just means like, things like more cravings, things with more like you ate a lot, but you're still hungry. It could just be more belly girth or more belly weight as well, and feeling like your metabolism is a lot slower. And you're wondering, is it hormones? Is it my metabolism is stopped working? What is the story here? And this is why it feels like maybe your body is fighting you, and then you feel like stuck with like, what the F is going on here? So let's talk about why belly fat shows up more now. So in perimenopause, estrogen starts to drop, and it does not kind of drop nicely and slowly. It kind of gets a little bit messy there. So when estrogen is higher, many women store more fat around their hips and their thighs. And you think about that from an evolutionary perspective, right? We have the capability of carrying, a child for 9 months. So we do need the kind of the hips and the thighs to store a little bit more fat to support that. But when estrogen drops and testosterone is more in charge, yes, women have testosterone, not just men. The body often starts storing more in the belly there, and stress, and then you have stress on top of that, and it gets louder. And for a lot of women, sometimes when I get on the calls, they're like, I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, where is stress, and they say it's pretty low. But when we talk, they're like 2 3 maybe. But when we start breaking down emotional weight and a mindset, that maybe makes you feel like I'm never good enough, I'm never quite there, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, those sorts of things, then we start to see that impact on stress. So sometimes that gets discounted too. But basically, it's like you have estrogen dropping, you have estrogen and testosterone going up as well, and the body starts to store more fat around the belly. And then you have stress on top of that as well. And because cortisol, your stress hormone, can run high now because of that. And when cortisol is up, the body tends to store more fat around the middle, middle. I don't know why it likes to hang around there, but that's where it does. Also, most women lose muscle as they age, especially if they're not lifting consistently or lifting in a progressive manner, you know, because a lot of women say, like, I've been working out, I'm really good at the workout thing, but they're not necessarily seeing themselves get stronger, have more stamina or endurance or that sort of thing when they're working out. And less muscle means you burn fewer calories at rest, your workouts feel a little bit harder, and you do not get the same results from the same effort. And this is why old strategies kind of stop working. I really need to pause there because I just said a lot in a short amount of time to let it land. If you have any questions and you're here live, post it in the comments below. But this is why you got the hormone stuff that's happening in the background that's shifting, right? And then you got stress that's showing up in different ways than maybe you are accounting for or that you're used to, which then creates a hormonal shift as well. And then we have this muscle thing. Why do we have this loss of muscle? Well, because we're not consistent, we're not progressively challenging our muscles to lift a little bit heavier. We're too focused on cardio, we're too focused on just walking or just yoga or just Pilates and that sort of thing. And then when we have a less muscle, our body does certain things with that. And so then all of this combination of things makes you feel like, why isn't this working? Well, this is why it stops working. So there's two types of belly fats, though, that we need to kind of understand. And I'm going to break down the two different types. But what most women have a hard time understanding is the difference between inflammation and belly fat, or what's digestion. So what is it? Because, hey, I haven't gone to the bathroom in 3 or 4 days, and if I just went to the bathroom regularly, I would feel better about that. Or what's inflammation as well? So the type of inflammation that goes up and down. And then it's what is belly fat. So what I want to do now is kind of tell you about the two different types of belly fat, because this matters for your health. So there's subcutaneous fat. This is the fat you can pinch. It sits right under the skin. So if you're like, I want to get rid of this, that's subcutaneous fat. Then you have visceral fat. This is deeper. It sits around your organs. So visceral fat is the one linked with higher health risks like diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure issues. So it's not just about looks, it's also about health. So, you know, I know a lot of doctors still talk about BMI, but one of the biggest predictors of, metabolic health or health declining is your waist to hip ratio. That's a better indicator of where your health status is at. So for some women, they're like, okay, I just have that fat that needs to pinch there. For other women, they have that, plus they have this visceral fat, which then, puts them at higher risk for, again, like diabetes, heart disease, and blood pressure issues. So let's talk about, again, because I just alluded to the fact that there's also inflammation and belly fat, and a lot of women have a hard time deciphering the difference between two. And you could certainly have both, right? So let's kind of talk about it, because it's a big reason why belly fat becomes really stubborn. So inflammation is not always bad. If you cut your finger, it swells, that is inflammation, that is healing. But chronic inflammation is different. Chronic inflammation is when your body is irritated for a long time. It can build slowly and quietly. So things that can cause it are obviously like stress. And so, like I said before, is like sometimes when I get on calls with women, they're like, no, my stress is really low. Like, I don't have any reason to be stressed, but they're not accounting for the mental and emotional loads that they're carrying there as well. And just because you have now those changes in hormones, you're buffering your ability to kind of deal with those stresses is a little bit different. And we're going to talk about stress in some upcoming trainings that I have planned as well. So what else can cause inflammation? Sitting a lot. And a lot of us have, desks, sitting for long periods of time because we're working on a computer or what have you. And even just like when I'm coaching clients, I'm like, do you have access to a standing desk? And we're setting goals around working at a standing desk as well. Alcohol, obviously, because alcohol is a toxin in the body. So when you drink, no matter how much you drink, the first priority of the body is to clear that toxin out of the body. It is not what you want, which is fat loss. It's not to say you can drink and you can lose weight, but it's to say you have to align your expectations with how much you're drinking, because the priority is also alcohol. You can also know most women, when they drink, then it's like they get really loose stools or something like that as well. So you can see the impact that it has on digestion. Poor sleep as well can impact inflammation. Ultra processed, like healthy foods like protein bars, wraps, ketos, and I'm not saying, or shakes, it's not to say that, hey, you can't eat those things. It's some clients that I've trained before is they're eating them in excess because they're like, I know I need to eat more protein. This is how I'm going to do it. To it's better for me to eat those things than it is for me to eat those other things that are more calorie dense or don't have enough protein. But we're not like, considering like that. Those are still processed healthy foods. They're still processed, and the impact that that has on digestion and inflammation as well. Overeating or undereating. So overeating causes inflammation in the body, but then so does undereating as well. Eating those foods that you're maybe more sensitive to or intolerant to will also do that as well. And overtraining and not recovering. And then there's obviously like grief, trauma, heavy seasons as well. Those all drive up inflammation. And the tricky part is this: chronic inflammation does not always look dramatic. It can show up like, you're just tired all the time. And it can be hard to decipher if you're just tired because the weather has been crappy here in Ontario. So it's been like, gray. It's like middle of January, and it's been dark and it's been cold and it's been crappy weather. So that affects it. So is it because, this is what's happening, or is it because that's happening? Again, like I said, it could be, joint pain, and it just can stop, just be like, joints in your knees, or, tennis elbow, or that sort of thing. They can cause like belly bloat as well. Brain fog could be another one, low mood, and then an increase in cravings. They just feel more so than they were before. So this is why women say, I did not change anything, but my body changed, or they say, I used to bounce back, now I don't. So let's talk about how inflammation kind of messes with your hormones. So when inflammation stays high, it can throw off cortisol, and when cortisol is off, other hormones can feel off too. So like estrogen, progesterone, your thyroid as well. So when you get this annoying combo, your belly feels bigger, your cravings feel stronger, sleep is worse, fat loss is harder, and you feel like you're doing everything right. This is not because your body is broken, it's just because your body is busy dealing with the stress and the irritation first. So then let's talk about the gut. Let's make the connection, right? Because we're talking about belly fat, and we've just talked about the two different types of belly fat. Now we're deciphering the difference between belly fat, and we're deciphering the in inflammation. And now we got to talk about, okay, well, how do I know if it's gut? How do I know if it's related to my digestive system? How do we separate those three different things as well, so we know? Because everyone kind of needs a different approach, right? So it's like, if you're only putting your eggs in this basket for fat loss, and you're doing more cardio, you're cutting out carbs, and then I don't know, you're doing more core exercises, you're totally missing the other buckets as well. So we really can't talk about belly fat without talking about digestion. So in perimenopause and menopause, hormones again shift, and because of that shift, it changes the gut. So again, you might notice more bloating, and you can see an overlap in some of these symptoms between inflammation and gut too, right? So you get bloating more often, you get a slower digestive system. So for some people, it's like, hey, it's my normal. I usually don't go 3 to 4 days to go to the bathroom. Well, I got to tell you, if you're in a hormonal flux, and how do you want the hormones to clear out if you're not going to the bathroom? And just like I used in the previous training, it's like the visual of the clogged sink. You keep eating healthy, you keep moving, you keep doing all of these things, but the sink is clogged because you're never going to the bathroom to move stuff out, and then if you're eating just of those things that I just said, you're overtraining, that adds to the clog. You're under eating, it adds to the clog. You're then what else? You're then sitting a lot, you're not sleeping well, you're drinking alcohol, it all adds to the clog, right? And so you definitely need to be going to the bathroom. So again, you might notice the bloating as well. You might notice slower digestion, meaning like how you used to go to the bathroom, the frequency, but also like what it feels like and what it looks like as well. You might be feeling fuller faster as well. It's like, oh, I didn't eat a lot, but I feel really full, even though you might still want dessert afterwards. Food feeling like it just sits there, that it's not just digesting. Some women will describe to me like it feels like it's just here. More gas as well, which is hard to decipher too, because when you're eating more protein, you get more gas, and you're eating more fiber, you get more gas. So is it gut health, right? And more constipation. And so for some women, that can be, severe diarrhea or just like really loose stools. And for other women, it's the complete opposite, like I mentioned, and more sensitivities to foods than you used to tolerate. So if your gut is stressed, it can cause inflammation. If inflammation is up, then cortisol is up. And when cortisol is up, belly fat tends to show up more. So gut health matters for belly fat because it changes inflammation. It changes your hunger and your cravings. It changes your energy. Yes, it gives you energy, and how your body uses food. So we've now just worked through, okay, the two different types of fat as well. We just worked through, okay, how to tell if it's inflammation. And then we just worked through if it's gut health. So if you're here, whether you're on the replay or the live, what I want you to do is pause. I want you to pause and be like, did you have a little bit from each one? Did you have more of one than the other? Then I want you to think about your approach or your strategy. Do you have some habits or some behaviors that belong in each one of those baskets, or are they all in one basket? That's the inventory you got to take so that you stop being like, nothing is working. Let's now address, I've now said, okay, you have signs and symptoms from each of the three baskets. Now you have to look at, okay, what are the tools that I have in those baskets to help me with those areas as well? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Give me a thumbs up if you're here. That makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. Okay, so let's cover a couple of myths about belly fat. So one of the myths is that if you just do more ab workouts, planks, crunches, that sort of thing, or a 30-day plank challenge or whatever, that you will lose your belly fat. And I'm here to tell you that it is a waste of energy. However, I can sympathize with you because one, I've been there before. I used to just go to the gym and just do a core workout, believing that same thing. And number two, it makes sense, right? It's like, that's the area I want, so therefore I'll work that area more. Sure, you could be developing strength. I've been coaching women for a long time in the gym and online, and I can tell you that a majority of core work is not done properly, and therefore if you want to develop strength, you're better to look at other ways of developing strength in the core than doing direct core work. But no, you don't reduce belly fat by doing that. So why don't you? Well, one, because spot reduction is a myth. So you can't just be like, I'm going to work my abs, therefore it's my abs are just going to show up. It's about, if you want belly fat to disappear or get less than, it's about overall calories. So you have to lose overall fat in your body, and then that way then you lose overall belly fat. The other thing is when you're doing core exercises, it actually doesn't burn much energy. What do I mean by energy? It doesn't burn a lot of calories when you're doing that. And so when you're thinking about biggest return on my investment, I want to do the things that burn a lot more calories than the things that burn less calories, for example. And then just like I said, like, having coached women for a really long time, when they tell me that they're doing core work, and even just like when I'm in the gym, it's like the women that I coach in person are just like, I can't believe that was 6 minutes of abs. And they are like, because we are doing it with intention and purpose, but not only that, we're doing it, matching that with proper breath work and proper posture as well, which are the two things that often is just like, I'll just do a plank, but we're not, apples in the back, we're not squeezing inward, we're not engaging the shoulder blades, we're not doing all of those things. So, and also we all have abs, they can be strong, but if there's fat over top, you'll not see them. Abs show when your body fat again is lower, not when your 30 days of crunches are done or over, right? So myth 2 is I can out exercise my eating. So for most women, no, you can't. If you're eating foods that irritate your gut, you can bloat and look bigger, even if your calories are not crazy. If you're overeating, exercise will not fix it. So some women will say like, oh, that workout, I burned 600 calories. And some women are of the mindset, well, if I burn 600 calories, I'll go eat 600 calories, which then doesn't give you, less belly fat. Other women are, I ate 600 calories, therefore I'm going to be, I'm not going to eat those back. I'm going to eat less today. But then it's again that overtraining, under eating thing that we talked about as well, which contributes to that belly fat. So you're kind of like stuck in that middle place, right? And so the big one I see is when women eat back their calories because they earned it. That mindset keeps you stuck. The other thing is when you think about exercise, so let's say your exercise is 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, but I spend the rest 6 to 8 hours sitting here, then does that outdo everything, right? I eat more often than I did for the 45 minutes to 1 hour that I worked out. So it doesn't outdo what you put on your fork. And the other thing is a lot of trackers are wrong in terms of what it is that you're burning as well. So myth 3 is carbs make it impossible to see your abs. Well, no, carbs can make you hold water. So when somebody goes on a diet and they decide, okay, I'm going to cut out my carbohydrates, and then they're like, oh, I did really good. I lost a lot of weight. I did really good when I cut out carbs. Well, you need to decipher the difference between, did you actually lose weight, or did you just lose water on the scale, right? So oftentimes when you cut out carbohydrates, what you're seeing is not weight loss. What you're seeing is water loss, because of just the way carbs work in your body. When you add the carbs back in, it's not, doesn't mean you gained weight. It means that now you're adding more water back into your diet. So carbs also help you train hard, recover, and build muscles, and you need them in perimenopause and menopause. And so we can't cut out carbs to see our abs. That's not the strategy for the reasons I just said, but also we need them to help us with our training if we are now going to think about lifting heavier to build that muscle, but also to recover. Number 4, I need fat burners and teas and wraps. No. Well, you need a smarter plan with training and nutrition. Those quick fix products don't solve the real problem there. So they can give you a temporary feeling of like it's working, and it often feels easier than trying to figure out the training thing, exercise thing, or the nutrition thing. I get the appeal in that, but they don't work on their own, and a lot of them are more marketing hype than they are actually worth. The myth 5 would be I just need to eat clean. So eating clean does not mean it does not mean you're not overeating, because even healthy foods still have calories. And here's another piece. If digestion is off, you can eat clean and still feel really awful. So if you're not absorbing the nutrients well, your body does not get what it needs, and the cravings and the fatigue kind of goes up there. Again, if you're here live, this is an opportunity to ask me questions here. Number 6 for the myth is I just need a probiotic. So I'm a big fan of probiotics. When I work one-on-one with clients and we work, the first 10 days are all about getting the gut on board with what it is that we're doing. I'm a big advocate for probiotics, but they are not the be-all, end-all. They're not your trump card, because if sleep is bad, if stress is high, you rush through meals, you barely chew, you graze all day, you drink lots of caffeine, and you eat lots of ultra-processed food, a probiotic will not save you. Supplements are meant to be a support. They're not meant to be a replacement for. So let's talk about what actually moves the needle. Okay, so before I get into this, if you've been watching my trainings for a long time, you're going to be like, ah, she's always saying the same thing, because the same thing done a little bit differently will solve a lot of these kind of issues or things or concerns that you have in perimenopause and menopause. So it does feel like I constantly have the same solution, because it does what it is that you need it to do. So protein is what I'm going to talk about. It not only helps you stay full, it keeps your cravings down, it protects your muscles, it helps you recover from workouts, and then it helps you kind of with that stabilizing energy. So a general range is about 0.8 to 1 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. But for most women, I don't push it crazy high. So, once you get over, let's say 150, for example, or even 140, it can be really hard to hit your protein without having to do like protein shakes, protein bars, and that sort of thing. And generally, we want to get our protein sources from more whole foods as well. So what moves the needle is, one, it's protein. I just gave you the range. I just told you the why. And if you increase your protein too fast, you can get bloated and constipated. So you want to go slow. So what could that look like? You can add, like, let's say in the morning you eat eggs. 2 eggs is not enough protein, but you could add a cup of, more egg whites to your breakfast to make it a full protein source. One of those small cups of like Greek yogurt, not a full serving of protein. So maybe you want to do a cup of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese as well. Maybe, with a little bit of chicken that you have on your salad, maybe you actually want to do a palm size of chicken, which is the thickness of your chin, your hand. And you want to aim, if you're doing calorie counting or anything like that, or macro counting, you want about 30 grams per meal. That's a really simple target to help you increase your protein as well. We've already touched on carbs, so let's get into it. Let's talk about it. And again, if you have any questions and you're here live, ask them now. Cutting carbs can drop the scale fast, but again, I just want to reiterate that's mostly water. They're really just not the enemy. It's more about the type and the amount. So some simple rules is, obviously we know that if we choose more whole foods or whole grains, that is better. We just really want to think fiber first, particularly if you scored really high when we went through gut health. If we thought about that, and fiber is actually really good for inflammation as well. So if you scored high in those categories, then you do want to always think fiber first. Fiber doesn't always just come from veggies as well. It comes from whole grains, it comes from chia, it comes from, flax, which are not sources of protein, they are sources of fats. You can eat protein and veggies first, then your carbs. So if I had a plate that had like chicken and it had, I don't know, asparagus, and then it had a sweet potato, well, maybe I will try and eat my chicken and my asparagus first, more bites of that, so that, if I get really satiated or full, I'm leaving some of my carbohydrates behind. And we have this, I teach clients to, particularly those with more cravings after they eat, even if they're full, or someone who has higher blood sugar levels as well when they go and get their blood work done, whether that's pre-diabetes, diabetes, or just that, is not to eat naked carbs on their own. So what does that mean? Is it usually means that when you have a carbohydrate, you're usually pairing that with a protein or a fat. So I could eat an apple, but I'm pouring it with peanut butter, or I'm an apple with Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, that sort of thing. And so there's that. So there's those strategies in terms of carbohydrates. Um, then we have to talk about muscle, and muscle is not about becoming bulky, right? A lot of women will say, I just want to feel healthy, lose weight, and get toned. Those are the three goals. Well, toned comes from having more muscle in your body. Like I've explained in other trainings, for example, so let's say this is 5 pounds of fat, let's say. This is 5 pounds of muscle. They weigh the exact same, they weigh 5 pounds. But this is going to make you look leaner and more toned than this. This is fat, this is muscle. So again, on the side note of we're talking about myth, muscle does not weigh more than fat. It's denser, it occupies less space in your body. So it's about getting, like at perimenopause and menopause, it's about getting strong and firm and able to eat without gaining. So muscle really does help your metabolism, helps with your hormones, your inflammation, changes your body shape for the reasons I just explained, and how your belly looks. So this is why lifting matters. So we want big movements, right? Because we talked about, hey, if you're just doing ab work, how that doesn't burn a lot of calories. But if you're doing like squats, deadlifts, lunges, push-ups, chest presses, rows, those sorts of things. Also, when you brace and breathe properly, your core works in every lift. So that means if you're bracing and you're breathing properly, you don't need to focus on the core exercises as well. That's how you build a strong midsection. And then there's sleep and stress. Well, you used to be able to go, out to the club on Friday and Saturday and until 2 a.m. in the morning, get up the next day for your shift at 7 a.m. That doesn't work the same now that you're in perimenopause and menopause. It just used to be, I think, like more optional, and now it's just not. And it's just not optional anymore, right? And so because poor sleep changes your hunger hormones, and you'll feel hungry, you'll crave more sugar and carbs the next day. So stress keeps your cortisol up, and cortisol pushes fat storage to the belly. So simple stress tools, like walking. So not every walk has to be like hitting a certain step count or really pushing it. Breathing exercises, like I have a client, or had a client, who was working out 7 days a week. She was just, that was her rhythm. She liked doing the 7 days. She had her morning carved out. She had it figured out down to a science. But when we're doing our check-ins and the weight's not moving, and we're looking at some of the other stress loads she's carrying with other things in her life, we have to look at, okay, well, is that the best strategy? Do we need some of the breathing? Do we need to spend some of the morning journaling? Do we need to spend some of the morning, just walking and just kind of slowing down as well? So some of the tools that help you, that's some of the things that help you with stress, even just the task of like slowing down to eat so you're not multitasking or working, is a way to bring the stress load down. But then there's the sleep side of things. So working on a consistent bedtime, working on that bedtime routine. That's what I work with clients. It's like, okay, screens are off at this time. Then what do you want to do for this next 30-minute block? What do you want to do for this next 30-minute block? And that sort of thing, right? Or it's like, what do you do when you wake up at 2 a.m. versus what do you do when you have a hard time falling asleep? It's working out those kinds of simple tools that you can put in place to help you optimize your sleep. And if your stress is lower, you're you're eating in a way that feels balanced as well, then that'll also optimize your sleep. So if you're struggling with energy, you can work on it in reverse. Rather than focusing on, I need energy drinks or things to give me energy, you work on the backside of things is optimize your stress and your sleep, and everything will come from that. So if that felt like a lot, that makes sense. The stage of life doesn't kind of respond to pressure, it responds to steadiness. So I know that some of us struggle with go big or go home, go all or nothing, you know, or simple's just not going to work. But if you have a hard time staying consistent, you have to think steadiness first before you can build any intensity or any of the, you know, frilly things afterwards, right? So you have to nail the basics and be really steady. You don't need to overhaul your food, your workouts, your sleep, and your stress all at once. That isn't really how progress is going to stick. You really just have to pick a couple of things in each of the baskets and maintain them. And what I always preach is like, okay, when you're trying to figure out what the plan's going to look like, you design the plan for the day, for your worst day, the day where you're just like, your energy is tanked, your sleep is crap, your mood is terrible, and you're just like maxed out. You design your plan according to that day, and you spend a lot of time there being really, really consistent. When you're consistent, then you can look at, okay, now what do I want to layer on? Okay, then you stay there for a bit and then you layer on the next one and the next one. That's not typically our approach to things, is that we do everything on day one. Okay, it's Monday. I said I was going to clean up my diet. I was not going to eat the crap. I was going to go to the gym, and we start it that way. Whereas really we just need to figure out, what is it that I can do on my worst of days, stay there, build the consistency and the steadiness first before you layer on the intensity and all of those other things that are just really like, you know, should I eat right after my workout or not? Well, if you're not working out, we got to nail that first, right? So I hope this training helped you understand the belly fat. It helped you understand the 3 different things that are happening around your belly fat. We didn't even get into pelvic floor, which would be maybe the 4th thing that might be happening with your belly fat as well. And so really it's looking at, okay, if I scored high in some of those categories, do I have an approach? Do I have tools and habits in each of those baskets to help me with those areas? Otherwise, it's like, well, if I'm just working on, you know, my calorie deficit, let's say that's all I'm working on, you could be coming up against a lot of like resistance or roadblocks, because it's like, well, your inflammation is leaking too, and your digestion is leaking at the same time. And so, and then it makes you feel like, well, I'm doing all of this and it's not working. So because you need a little bit in each kind of basket, particularly if you scored high in those baskets, you need to have tools in those areas. And I wish I had a really quick analogy to give you right now, but I don't have an analogy to kind of drop on you to make sense of this. But I hope it made sense for you in terms of what's happening in the belly area, and then the things that are within your control to kind of focus on to move the needle forward. And this was part 2 of a training kind of on that belly fat area as well. So hopefully you caught training number 1 as well. And we've been talking a lot about digestion and inflammation lately. So this is your permission slip and how I support you. These trainings are here to help you kind of connect the dots, take like bigger topics, simplify them a bit, and help you take imperfect action, because really the goal is to do simple better. That's the really secret. It's not to do harder more, it's simple better. So if you're watching this and thinking, okay, this makes sense, but I don't know how to apply it to my life, that's normal. This training is meant to like really create clarity. It's not meant to replace the support. So if at some point you're wanting more like personalization to, you know, staying accountable, you want that accountability coach, you want the plan, you want the map, you want personalization, you can get that, you know, just reach out, ask a couple questions, no pressure, just know that support exists. Hope this was helpful. I hope to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me what your next imperfect action step is. Thanks, Coach Cindy signing off.